Oh, we are live. Welcome on into a live edition of the Cleveland Browns Report. Matthew Peterson here, breaking down some of the latest Myles Garrett news and rumors. He spoke on the Rich Eisen show today from Radio Row in New Orleans at the Super Bowl. So I want to share with you guys what Garrett had to say. We're going to go over Mel Kiper's latest mock draft. So a lot of ground to cover on today's live show. In fact, so much ground that I moved the show up about 20 minutes early because I did not want to skip a single thing. So, with that all being said, I will let the audience build up for a few minutes before we jump into our first segment because I know we're getting a little bit early, a false start on our end, but we've had so many delayed games, I think you guys will be happy with a false start here and there. So, should the Browns trade Myles Garrett? Yes or no? Put your preference aside. Knowing what you know now, which is he has requested a trade, do you think the Browns should oblige and fulfill that request or say, tough luck, dude. You got 2 years left on your contract. We are not trading you. I am in the camp of yes. And I don't like that, but I am not going to ignore the facts. And the facts are he has come out and requested a trade. He has said that he does not believe that this team is headed on the right path to win a Super Bowl. And I think bringing that back into the locker room is not going to bring a whole lot of optimism for all 52 other players that the leader of this team himself believes they can win a Super Bowl. No, he's going to be in there going, I'm here because I got a lot of money, I got a big fat contract extension, but I still don't think we can win. I said that. You can't take those words back. It's too late now. Cat's out of the bag, which is a bummer. But this is where we are right now. We've got a lot of people tuned in right from the start, over 100 people watching, so thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure to like the video if you are just joining our I'll say watch party. I wish we were having a watch party. Our live show today. Also, shout out your city for me in the chat. This is a good time to remind ourselves, sports are supposed to be fun. And this past week has not been very fun for the Dog Pound, but I do not want to lose sight of what NFL and football is all about, which is it's supposed to be fun. And so let's keep things a little bit lighthearted here with a nice simple shout out your city in the chat. Let me know where you are tuning in from. Kathy is watching from Sacramento. That was the second question in our trivia game last night. You can probably guess what the question itself was, or the second answer in our trivia game last night. So as you guys give a shout out to your city in the chat, I'm going to give a shout out to our sponsor, which is Game Time. Game Time has an awesome feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you do not have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. One thing I really like about Game Time is their all-in pricing option. Toggling this feature shows the total upfront cost with no surprise fees at checkout. Plus, they offer the Game Time guarantee. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Today's live show is also made possible thanks to Prize Picks. That's the best place to get real money sports action. With the big game coming up and over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stat projections. Prize Picks now offers Venmo for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals into your account this season. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. All of that information is in the comments and description of today's video. Plus, you can take the more on Patrick Mahomes' passing yards for the big game, which is just 0.5. Pair it with one more, and you are ready to roll. Once more, download the Prize Picks app and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. run your game. We're going to have a mailbag towards the end of today's live show. So if you have a question you would like to ask, super chat and we guarantee it gets on screen, or just put your question in the chat with the phrase #Browns somewhere in your message. That way producer Dylan can pull the question and throw it on screen for everyone watching to see. So start getting your questions in early and often regarding Myles Garrett, the Browns, draft, free agency, whatever tickles your fancy. We've got Phil in the chat. Kathy is here. Shiny, Calvin, Joshua Miller. Josh, trivia time. You guys want a good trivia question that was last night? So the final question from last night's trivia was I gave 3 halftime shows and 3 Super Bowl winners, and you had to pair the halftime show with the correct winner from that game. So the halftime shows that I picked were Coldplay, Tom Petty, and Maroon 5. And they all performed during a game that either the Patriots, Giants, or Broncos won. So just correctly pair the 3 across the board. You guys can chew on that for a little while. Jersey Dog is here. What's going on, Jersey Dog? Great to see you in the chat. We have Mike here. Cameron's here. There we go. Phil, I can't remember what I had for lunch. I can. It sucked because it is officially wedding diet for me. My big day is coming up at the end of May, and this physique is not going to cut it, I've heard so many times from so many family members. So I'm on basically a sleep for dinner diet and no carbs at lunch. They picked a bagel place today, so I kind of had to make the best of it. So a nice wheat salad wrap kind of for me. It's not good right now for me. It's been a tough day, but yeah, it's long overdue. So with that in mind, let's get into what's on today's show, which is I originally had this planned, a path for Myles staying in Cleveland. It's not looking too good anymore, but we can still at least humor ourselves with it. Mel Kiper put out a brand new big board after the Senior Bowl, and I think it's really important we look at this now because the Browns might have not 1 but 2 picks in the first round if they trade Mr. Garrett. So we need to become a little bit well-versed with other prospects in this draft class, not just the top 5 guys. And then that mailbag I talked about, #Browns or Super Chat if you would like to be on screen. Cabbage soup diet, no bread, unlimited fruit. We have an Eagles fan watching. Nick, where is your wedding at? My fiance is from Atlanta, so she got home field. It will be just outside of Atlanta. Dave, I see your question. Don't put a space between the hashtag and the word Browns. Sandwich that bad boy. Like how I wish I had a sandwich for lunch today, but just a wheat wrap for me. I hate wheat bread. I don't know how anyone prefers wheat bread over white bread. I don't like the grains, the nut. No thank you. All right, so this is what we had planned for today. I snuck an extra little bonus segment into it, which is what we're going to start the show off with. And that is a complete recap and breakdown of Myles Garrett's 8-minute interview clip from The Rich Eisen Show. All right, should we get into our first segment, Mr. Dillon? There we go. We got one of the newer producers here, Chat Sports, hanging out with us today because 6 guys from the Chat Sports crew are in New Orleans with all the Super Bowl coverage going on. So we're kind of spread thin, which means Dylan got the call up to the big leagues. He's with the Guardians right now, no longer in Indianapolis. So welcome aboard. We're excited to have Dylan. Dylan's going to do an excellent job, so don't be afraid to show him some love in the chat. Dylan, one quick question. You can unmute yourself for this because I've always wanted to ask a Dylan this question. How much do you hate it when you say your name is Dylan and they spell it D-I-L-L and not the D-Y way? Yeah, you do have a last name. It's Summers. Oh, I thought it was S at the end. No, that's my bad. You sure about that? You're positive. Pretty sure there's an S. So, yeah, you kind of – I like the D-Y more than the D-I for Dylan. It's like S-O. Okay. That's definitely a very relatable person for everyone in America. Don't you know the Swiss backup goalie? Come on now. Okay. Dave, Thank you for fixing your question. Now we can include it in our mailbag. Here we go. Let's get into our first segment. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button to begin the show if you have not already. Myles Garrett hopped on the Rich Eisen show at Radio Row in New Orleans for the Super Bowl. And let me tell you, it's not a good interview for Andrew Berry or anyone else in that Browns front office to listen to. Unfortunately, I can't just play the entire interview because of stupid copyright laws, but what I can do is relay some of the big pieces that came out of it. But the overarching takeaway that I just want to get out there right from the start, he wants a trade. I listened to this interview and I kind of put myself in the lens of it's somewhat like when your best friends break up. You know, maybe you're good friends with the guy and the girl and they split up and you're trying to get them back together. And after getting lunch with one of the two parties, you walk away from that meeting going, there's no chance they are getting back with the other person. There's no chance after listening to what Myles Garrett had to say on the Rich Eisen show that he is going to just change his mind out of the blue and go, yeah, you know what? On second thought, I slept on it and I do want to be a Brown. I don't know what I was thinking about earlier. No. There is no doubt in my mind that unless a major change is made, Garrett is going to remain adamant he wants to be traded. Here's what he said when Rich asked him, so what happens next? A trade to happen next. I just want to go to a contender. I know in my position, I don't have much say in where I go, but hopefully we can leave off on good terms and find a middle ground between us. Do you really want a hostage if you're the Browns? I mean, the guy was asked, what happens next, Myles? And the first thing out of his mouth is, I want to be traded. He could have said, I don't know, something like, maybe we strike up a new contract. He did not even leave a little bit of wiggle room for what he wants next. He has made it abundantly clear he wants a trade. And if you are the Browns, I don't think it's a good idea to just keep him hostage because you can. He has 2 years left on his contract. So there's nothing forcing the Browns to trade Myles Garrett other than holding on to him is going to create a toxic locker room where your best player doesn't want to be there and has publicly said, I don't think this front office can get us into a contending status. He has said everything to that effect without spelling it out for you. And my biggest fear, the Browns are going to make a bunch of desperate, bad moves to try and appease Myles Garrett. They had multiple meetings with him from the last game of the season, his exit interview until today, and I'm sure they covered what their plan is. And my suspicion is Garrett's takeaway from those meetings is the plan sounds like a rebuild to me, and I'm not going to be a part of a rebuild. And the Browns go, okay, we got to change things up because our original plan for Myles was not good enough. So what's another idea? If the plan was we're going to do a veteran bridge quarterback and we're going to take the best player available at number 2, that plan's now out the window. Let's take Shedeur Sanders if the Titans go with Cam Ward. But we all agreed that we don't like Shedeur Sanders at the number 2 spot. Yeah, but we have to do something to keep Myles here. And maybe he'll change his mind if we say we'll take Shedeur. Now we are encroaching in like NBA waters where you just start to build everything around the players, and when it doesn't work out, no one's really mad at the player. They just get the coach fired and they start all over again. That's a very dangerous area. One, I don't want to be a part of. There's no player bigger than the team in the NFL with how many guys are on the field. So, for me, this is a frightening scene where if the Browns should start making desperate moves, start making trades at wide receiver to go, look, Myles, we're putting together a good offense. Please don't go. And then if it doesn't work out because the moves were overpays and you lost valuable draft capital, and Garrett the next offseason says, yep, I still want to be traded, and now you're left 10 feet under because you made all those poor decisions just to make one man happy. That is my biggest fear. And I don't get the sense from the front office that they are the type of front office to do this, but desperation brings out the worst in people. And Andrew Berry may feel like, if I lose Myles Garrett, I'm the next to go. Another thing Garrett said on the Rich Eisen show, when talked about, what if the Browns don't trade you? He said, that's a little bit further down the line than I'm willing to look. I'm sure people are calling and hopefully making some tempting offers. That is an absolute dagger to Andrew Berry. I go back to my Colin Cowherd analogy at the start. I mean, you are trying to get your two best friends back together. You guys all, had a great time in college, and now they just split up right afterwards, and you're getting coffee with one of them saying, what would it take to get back with the other person? And they go, to be honest, I just want to go start seeing other people. Like, oh, no. That's not what the other person wanted to hear. For Myles to say, what if they don't trade you? And he responds with, I hope they're getting good offers. He is not even hinting at what he wants. He is spelling it out for you. And he is not making any type of confusion around what he wants. He wants to go play for a contender. He does not think the Browns are a contender. I don't know a way Andrew Berry and the Browns can convince him that they are a contender. He's arrived at that conclusion, and it doesn't seem like money is going to change his mind. And 9 times out of 10, money talks. I think like Herb Brooks' team, we have found the 1 time out of 10 where it doesn't seem like money is going to change his mind. And if Myles is absolute on going to get traded, I want to be traded, there is nothing you can do to make me stay in Cleveland willingly, then cut him loose. Get the best you can in a trade offer. I mean, start a bidding war, put 3, 4, 5 teams against each other, drive up the price, and get as many picks as you can possibly. And I don't want to say cut your losses, but just come to grips here. Get the picks now. Get them for this draft. Get them for next draft. That is, unfortunately, where we are right now. More from this in just a moment, but I do want to give a big shout out to Game Time. Game Time has an awesome feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you do not have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. One thing I really like about Game Time is their all-in pricing option. Toggling this feature shows the total upfront cost with no surprise fees at checkout. Plus, they offer the Game Time guarantee. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. All that information is in the comments and description of today's video. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. There were a couple other takeaways that I had from Myles' interview with Rich, so I'll just kind of go one by one here, starting with something that he said, and almost verbatim, he's not aligned on the team's direction. And once again, just to drive that point home, it doesn't seem like money is something he is looking for in this trade request, which a lot of times when a player makes a trade request, it's because they want a new contract. Myles has never once brought up a new contract. In fact, he has said he is not interested in playing for money or playing for personal accolades. He wants to play in meaningful games. You can't give him meaningful games like you can't give him a brand new contract, or you can do everything you can to be his biggest cheerleader and biggest publicist. The Browns have never stopped short of publicly going out and saying Myles Garrett is the best defensive player in football. Every opportunity Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry have gotten to support their own players, they do it for Myles more than anyone else. They have done everything they can to try and keep him in Cleveland when it comes to Contract-wise, because money's not an issue. If he wants a new deal, they'll give him a new deal. And personal accolades-wise, he's one defensive player of the year. But they can't just snap their fingers and make themselves a contending team in his eyes. Another thing that he mentioned in the interview was this was on a blindside trade request. The Browns did not find out on Twitter like all of us did on Monday. He had let them know beforehand. He said that they had their exit interview after the season, and he met with some of the members of the upper brass, the front office, and it was not a blindside to them. So they knew about this trade request, which makes me think Andrew Berry, when he spoke to some media members at the Senior Bowl, knew this request is going to become public. Right now, before it does, I still have no interest in trading Garrett. He also shared that he talked about this decision with LeBron. Rich Eisen said, who did you talk to about it? And Garrett said, I talked to my family, talked to his sister, talked to his agent, his marketing team, all that. And he said, and I talked to the guy from Akron. So LeBron James, wow. I don't know if this is really what Browns fans needed to hear, that Cleveland legend LeBron also, I don't know if encouraged, but LeBron was in not that different of a spot when he left for Miami. It wasn't a trade, but he felt like he could not win a championship in Cleveland, and he wanted to go win a championship, which meant he had to go somewhere else. And, well, we know what happens after that, and all is forgiven at this point, but it doesn't make it any better that, LeBron, thank you for encouraging Garrett to do what you did to us and the turmoil that Cavs fans went through as a result. And the fourth other takeaway I had was, like I said before, it's not about money or the Hall of Fame. I also read that Garrett's line in his request about my goal is to not go from Cleveland to Canton. It's about winning a Super Bowl. It was not a diss at Andrew Berry, but it was a response to Andrew Berry's verbatim quote at the end of the season press conference of, we expect Myles to be a Brown forever, and he's going to go from Cleveland to Canton. So I don't think a new contract is going to persuade Mr. Garrett. I don't think it's all about his personal legacy with the Browns and playing for them for his entire career. He just wants to go and win. And honestly, I can't really knock him for that. Feel free to get in the comment section. Let me know what your favorite Myles Garrett moment is down below. But I've always had the mindset and the attitude of these stars already make so much money that if they have the opportunity to go somewhere else and really compete and maybe not make as much money, they should do that. Because that's what I would do if I already made $100+ million. So how can I be mad at Myles for doing something that I've always said has bothered me about pro athletes is they will take the bigger paycheck from another team, even if that team's worse, than a chance to compete with a better team. Ultimately, the NFL Combine is the next stopping point in our off-season train track. And that's when things will really start to pick up. You're going to have all 32 GMs in Indianapolis. They will all be at St. Elmo's with a, old-fashioned and reporters drinking Diet Cokes, trying to get some intel out of them. And that is when a lot of these deals are conceived and birthed and really start to come together. So keep an eye on the Combine, because when we start to get some conversations between GMs there, that is when wheels are put in motion for a trade to happen closer to the start of the new league year, which we have seen time and time again when Russell Wilson was traded and Deshaun Watson was traded, right? That was all towards the start of the new league year with conversations happening beforehand. Before we sign off, let's pick a card. Dylan, hope you're having a good day. Which card do you want to go with this Dylan? You. I was talking about this Dylan, Dylan Sutcliffe. But I realize there's two Dylans here. Let's go with the 8 of clubs. 8 of clubs. I was thinking 10 of diamonds. It's not going to be the 10 of diamonds. So I'm going to change my answer to the 5 of hearts. Jack of diamonds. Jack of diamonds. I know. Participation trophy. That will do it for us on our episode today. Thank you all for watching all the way to the end of the video. If you're still watching, drop a CLE for me in the comment section. That way I know who is a part of the end of the video crew. Super Chat flew in while we were in the middle of that cut, so we'll throw that on screen for you here. Did anyone get it right? I don't think so. Kathy and Dave, thank you for watching. Kathy going 7 of spades. Time Warrior, 3 of diamonds. Ninja Cow, 3 of clubs. Joshua Miller, longtime viewer on the channel, with a $5 super. Deshaun Watson plays 19 games, set for life with a guaranteed $230 million contract while tanking a franchise. Never thought one player could leave so much chaos behind. When you put it this way, Josh, you're absolutely right. And I'm not trying to be a Deshaun Watson defender at this stage. I do think that we have kind of painted him out as someone who did this intentionally. I don't think he intentionally tried to be bad. I don't think he intentionally hurt his Achilles and will probably not play for the Browns ever again. I don't think he intentionally broke a bone in his shoulder. Like, there were some things that were out of his control. And this is going to sound crazy, and some of you might just leave the live show just because of it. I don't fault the Browns and Andrew Berry and Haslam and Stefanski for the process they went through of realizing we don't think Baker Mayfield can beat Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow. We think Deshaun Watson has a better chance at beating those guys. Which at the time, you put aside all the sexual assault, misconduct allegations against him, you know what I'm trying to say? You put that aside and you talk about the player on the field, I would think we'd all agree at that time when he was traded, yeah, Watson probably has a better chance of beating those guys. I mean, he was up 24-0 against Patrick Mahomes in Arrowhead. I mean, an incredible comeback by the Chiefs, but that did happen. So I don't fault them too much for having this thinking of we feel like we have a ceiling with Baker and we have an opportunity to go out and be better. We should pursue that. Unfortunately for them, they made the wrong decision, but the overarching thinking of we're not going to just be complacent. I don't fault them for trying to do their jobs to always improve the roster. It backfired clearly, and if they could go back and do it all over again, I'm sure they would. But that thought process, I don't think is a bad thought process to have in your GM. You just want them to make the right decision when it comes to who out there could be better, which that turned out to be wrong. We have a mailbag coming up in a little bit, so if you have any questions, use hashtag Browns or Super Chat like Josh just did, and we'll throw it on screen for everyone watching to see. Joshua Miller submitted your questions limit. Josh, you always are the Michael Jordan of asking questions. I don't think Baker was worth the money he wanted. Yeah. The crazy thing is if you go back in time and do it all over again, they don't trade for Deshaun Watson. They stick it out with Baker probably for another year. And I'm not even sure if they would have re-signed Baker. Probably are in a better spot right now than if they did stay with Baker and just let him go in free agency. But I'm not even really all that convinced that Baker would still be on the Browns if they never traded for Watson. I don't think Baker would be the quarterback he is today without the perils he went through in Carolina and with the Rams and the learning from Sean McVay before signing a really cheap one-year deal, a proven contract to stay in the NFL with the Buccaneers. Another super chat coming in from Loverboy Charlie. Let's say the super chat for the mailbag. Loverboy Charlie, we're going to lead off our mailbag with your question. Does that sound like a good idea? Next up on the show, it's when I woke up this morning, and I don't know how you guys operate in the morning, but like for me, when I'm getting ready for the workday with my line of work, I spend my morning routine of getting ready and then walking to work, kind of premeditating what topics do I want to talk about today. And I thought a fun topic would be how you can keep Myles in Cleveland. And then after listening to what he said on the Rich Eisen show, my faith and belief in that plummeted. But I don't think it's a 0% chance. So if you are looking for something to hold on to, you're really going to like this next segment. So there we go. Are we ready to rock and roll? All right, here we go. Let's talk about how you can keep Myles in Cleveland. Today's episode is all about how the Browns can keep Myles Garrett in Cleveland. Now, full transparency, this video was scripted and kind of like just conceived before his interview on the Rich Eisen show, which I made a whole other video about. And to To be completely honest with you, I don't have much faith in the Browns holding on to Myles Garrett, nor do I think they should hold on to Myles Garrett at this stage. But if you are in the camp of what could happen for the Browns to hold on to 95, well, this video is for you. So let's at least explore some history, shall we? Because there have been a handful of players who once requested a trade, and we know how things have worked out since then. Lamar Jackson requested a trade. Now, his trade request, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuels, Trey Hendrickson, Jalen Johnson, Budda Bakers, all of those trade requests were rooted in wanting a new contract. Even Kobe once asked for a trade. I learned that this week. Happened in 2007, so a little before my NBA expertise. But yeah, all those trade requests were rooted in we would like a new contract. There is nothing in Myles Garrett's trade request that signals he wants a new contract. He has made it so crystal clear that he is only interested in going to play for a contending team. You can look at his requests right now and refresh your memory on it. This is not about money. And so if money can't solve your problems, when you're a billionaire, that's a very strange position to be in. And I think we've seen plenty of movies and shows where the hero turns down the villain's money and sticks to their morals. I can't really fault Myles for saying, I want to go play for a contender. I'm 29 years old. I'm at the best, the peak of my career right now, and I don't think we're any close to winning a championship here, and I want to go win a ring. I've got plenty of money for the rest of my life and my kids' life and their kids' life. You invest it wisely, all that good stuff. So I don't really have a beef with the way Myles has gone about this. He's been very professional when speaking in the media. He has not tried to smear the Browns or make them out in a bad light. He's been anything but, respectful. I'm sorry, everything and respectful about the Browns and Northeast Ohio. He just wants to go win a ring. Don't we all? So here's my path, though, to keeping Myles. Garrett, I know you're watching, so sit back and relax. Step one, you got to come up with a new quarterback plan. If his desire to go to find a ring is because the Browns are not contenders, you have to somehow convince him you are still a contending team. Having said that, this is very dangerous because now you are starting to cater to one player's wishes, one player's desires. And when you put the player above the team, we've seen that happen so many times in the NBA where teams make a bunch of trades to try and make one star player happy. And has it ever worked out? I don't think so. No. That's what my fear right now is. They're going to make all these moves to try and make Myles happy and show, no, don't worry. We're still contenders. Watch this. We're going to trade for Cooper Kupp now. What? Why are you trading for Cooper Kupp? He's old. He's injury prone. He's expensive. Well, we'll have a good slot wide receiver. Myles, are you happy now? Please stay. That's scary to me. My suspicion is the Browns met with Myles, that's not suspicion. They did. And in those meetings, they relayed, we don't think there's a good starting quarterback in this draft that can take us to the promised land. So we're going to go with the bridge quarterback route. We're going to sign one of these veteran free agents. And they're going to hold down the fort for a season or two until we find our quarterback in the draft. Garrett goes, whoa, season or two? That's one season of a bridge. That's one season of the rookie quarterback being a rookie, and no rookie quarterback has ever won a Super Bowl. So we're talking best case scenario, 3 years from now, we are in an actual contending spot. That does not sound like a good plan to me. So maybe the Browns say, okay, well, we'll speed up that timeline. We'll take a quarterback now, and then by next year, when they're in year 2, is that close enough for you to feel like you can still be in a championship window here? And now all of a sudden you're changing your draft strategy to just make Myles happy. I'm not a fan of letting players make the picks. There have been a lot of instances of players who have been on a team for a long time. Maybe not a lot, but didn't Patrick Mahomes have some level of influence on Kansas City drafting Clyde Edwards-Helaire? Am I making that up, or was that not a story? And that was a bad pick. It unfortunately did not work out for them. No, I don't think you should let Myles' I won't say demands, but what he sees in a future and what you see start to blend and merge, and you go, okay, you're right. We will take a quarterback second overall. Yeah, forget that Abdul Carter guy. I'm sure he stinks anyway. So would you draft a quarterback at number 2 if it meant keeping Myles Garrett? Some of you watching already want to take a quarterback at number 2. I personally do not think there's a quarterback in this draft class worth a top 5 draft pick. And that sounds crazy right now, but I don't think it'll sound all that crazy in a few years. So for me, I would say no. I don't think you light the second overall pick on fire just to keep 95 happy. I think that's a bad way to run an organization, and I think a year or two from now, you're just right back where you started, and Myles wants to trade, and you don't have the second overall pick player of Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter on your roster for the next quarterback to inherit. There's step 1, is come up with a new quarterback plan. I don't think it's a good thing to go down this path, but that's kind of the only option you really have. Step 2, or option number 2, add an extra 0. He has said that he is not in this for the money. But when you slap on an extra 0, that can change a lot of people's minds. I mean, I'm watching Beast games right now, and how many people have changed their minds when they were tempted with a lot of money? So I'm looking at the highest paid non-quarterbacks in the NFL. Justin Jefferson sits at the top making $35 million a season. Myles Garrett, for reference, makes $25 million a season. So what if you go, hey, Myles, we'll make you the highest paid defensive end in football, besting Nick Bosa. You'll go from $25 million a season to $34.5 million a season. What if that's not good enough? All right. How about this? 4 years, $160 million. You put $40 million a season in front of him and make him say no. You give him starting quarterback type of money. And he might have a different thought. This is your Hail Mary. And he might say no. And if he did say no, in a weird way, I'd almost be proud of him for it. Because he's not letting money dictate what he thinks is best for himself. But you have to try if you're the Browns. You got to go, we're going to not only just make you the highest non-paid quarterback in the NFL, we're going to blow out the record and make it $5 million more and not just barely one up Justin Jefferson. 4 years, $160 million. That's one way. Not a guarantee, but you got to try probably. Before we look at the third way to keep Myles in Cleveland, today's show made possible thanks to Game Time. Game Time has an awesome feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you do not have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. One thing I really like about Game Time is their all-in pricing option. Toggling this feature shows the total upfront cost with no surprise fees at checkout. Plus, you can filter by city on Game Time. If you want to see what's going on in Cleveland or wherever else you live, visit Game Time right now and take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Turning our attention back to a 3-step plan to keep Myles Garrett in Cleveland, although between you and me, I don't think it's going to happen. But if you are looking for a Hail Mary, I'm your man here. Step number 3, just don't trade him, right? Nothing forcing the Browns to trade him. Got 2 years left on his contract. You want to keep Myles in Cleveland, then you just keep him in Cleveland. Keep him hostage, which has a lot of cons to it, but the Browns could do this. I mean, Andrew Berry has not minced his words. He has not blinked. We're in a stare down right now. And he has said time and time and time again, he has no interest in trading Myles Garrett. So the simplest way to keep Myles Garrett in Cleveland is do not trade him, which might sound too simple. Like, oh, I didn't realize it'd be that easy. I guess we just don't trade him. But there are a lot of cons that follow with that. You keep Myles hostage in Cleveland, and we'll rotate through these, Dylan. You keep Myles hostage in Cleveland, that's a bad message to the locker room. I mean, that's a locker room that goes, our best player has said publicly he does not think we are a contender. He doesn't believe in this front office that they can become a contender. And they're keeping him hostage here. That's one big fat elephant in the room. And I don't think it's going to have a nice ending. I don't think Myles is going to wake up in July going, you know what I said back in February? Forget it. We'll shake hands. We'll go out for a nice steak dinner. And you're absolutely right, guys. We can win here. And revisiting that last tweet we had on screen from Ari Miroff, when Barry was asked, hey, if someone sees you at dinner and says, we'll give you 2 ones for Myles Garrett, do you say, I'm not interested? And Barry says, correct. You can put that on the record. That's an important interaction right there, because if Andrew Barry ends up blinking first and does trade Myles Garrett, he has said, I'm not trading him for 2 firsts, which means your asking price is insanely high. And there may not be a team that meets that asking price. Barry said, I'm not trading him for 2 firsts. So if he trades him for 2 firsts in a week or so, he's more or less admitting defeat. And these guys in the NFL, they're pretty stubborn. They don't get to where they are by bending over backwards for other people. So the only way the Browns in Barry's eyes are going to trade him is the minimum, the floor, is 2 firsts and then some, which would be unprecedented. I mean, Bradley Chubb traded for a first-round pick. There were some extra picks that went along with a few of these trades, but I wouldn't say they were meaningless, but they were more or less just day 2, day 3 pick swaps. I mean, the closest one we really have is Khalil Mack. He went to Chicago for 2 first-round draft picks, but also the Bears got the Raiders' second-round draft pick, and the Raiders got the Bears' third-round draft pick. So there were some day 2 and day 3 pick swaps there. Barry is saying, I'm not even listening at 2 first-round picks. I don't know how many teams are going to offer 2 firsts and more. You got to think about this from their perspective. We are all a little bit biased because we all have seen how great and impactful Myles Garrett is. But a GM for another team is going to come into this looking for pros and cons. And the cons are, he's 29 years old. You're going to have to give him a huge extension and make him the highest paid defensive end of football, which is not, an insurmountable thing to do, but it's factored in. Garrett's also dealt with a couple of injuries. There was the car incident 2 years ago. He had a shoulder injury last year in Denver. Earlier this past season, he had an injury. So a team might look at that and go, hey, that's a guy who's actually been playing through some stuff right there. I don't know if it's really worth us giving up 3 first-rounders for that. That might be a little too rich for us. And if the Browns trade him before June 1st, it's a $36 million dead cap hit. So there's plenty of motivation for Cleveland to go, we're not doing any trade until after June 1, when the dead cap hit goes way down, because we can spread this number over 2025 and 2026. But here's the issue with that. You trade Myles Garrett after the draft, after June 1st, you're not getting in 2025 draft picks. No, Andrew Barry is getting 2026 and 2027 draft picks for the next GM to use, because Barry's going to get fired. You think they're going to hold on to Andrew Barry after he trades Myles Garrett and they have a bad 2025 season? 2 straight subpar losing years? No, they're going to clean house. So Andrew Barry now has traded his best player away, and he never even gets to touch what he got in that trade. No, it's all picked for the next GM. That's an impossible position for Barry to be in, unless he has very good reason to believe I will not be fired no matter what. And that is a bet I don't think Barry wants to make. So we'll wrap up with this right here. Will Myles Garrett stay in Cleveland? I think it's in everyone's best interest to trade him. Get a bidding war going. Drive up his price. Get as much as you can. And take your medicine. Accept the defeat that you blundered, wasted, and squashed the prime of so many great players. Myles Garrett, Nick Chubb, Joel Petonio, Denzel Ward. 4 guys who are perennial Pro Bowlers, potential Hall of Famers, Myles for sure, Petonio maybe. And that sucks. And it all comes back to the Deshaun Watson trade, which this next part's going to sound crazy. I'm not in defense of the trade with what we know now, but I don't necessarily fault the Browns for thinking we can improve at the quarterback position because we don't believe Baker can beat Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, or Lamar Jackson. But we think Deshaun Watson can. And at the moment, that kind of sounded pretty realistic. Nowadays, not at all. But back then it did. And I don't blame the Browns for having the thought process of, it's our job to improve the roster, and we found a way to improve it. It turns out it was not an improvement, but the thinking of we should look to improve is good thinking. They just made the biggest gamble of their lives. They put it all on black, on red, and it landed on green. Let's pick a card to wrap up the show. Mr. Dylan Summers, which Dylan Sutcliffe card do you want to pick today? Green, by the way, should be outlawed in Vegas. Are you a gambling man at all? I've dabbled. Dabbled's a light way of putting it. I love a good casino trip. If it lands on green, I'm going out the window. Okay. I'm thinking 6 of spades, but it won't be that. So I'm not going to do 6 of spades. I'm going to do ace of hearts. It's 6 of spades. Gotta be fucking kidding me. I can't believe that. That's never gonna go away from my brain. Okay. This has just been a bad week. Damn it. I'll see you guys later. Are you fucking kidding me? I had it. I said it. And I just changed it. Have I ever gotten it? Yes, Dylan, I have gotten it. This is our 3rd off season of picking a card. I got it once the first off season and once the second off season. I'm in shock. I had this feeling that would happen first. Like I would say the original pick before I actually got it right. Wow. Okay. Well, let's try and power through. The next segment on today's live show is a Mel Kiper big board. He came out with a new big board after the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl. And with the possibility of the Browns having multiple first-round picks this year, we have to learn prospects beyond 1 through 5. I'm talking 1 through 25, because the Browns might get the 25th overall pick in the draft from someone who trades with them to get Garrett. So, are we ready here? Josh, I feel like the Browns right now. 6 of spades was Baker, and the ace was Watson. The process was not wrong. It's just that this instance it didn't work out. But over a long sample size, that process will win more than it loses. The issue in sports is you don't get that long of a sample size. Like, you get fired if it doesn't work out the first time. I would love to know how different some teams could be if the GM and or the coach were locked in for a mandatory 10 years. Because I think sometimes when the pressure gets on, they make decisions that's best for their own job security and not best for the future of the team. And then they end up getting fired, and then the team's screwed in the long run. I'd love to know how some teams could be looked differently or shake out differently if it's like a rule. You can't fire your GM until he's GM'd for 10 years. I just made GM a verb. Tyrone, appreciate you watching with us today. Dallas is here. Peppa's here. Here we go. Let's talk about some draft targets. ESPN's Mel Kiper dropped an updated big board after the Shrine Bowl and the Senior Bowl, which are the first stops in the pre-draft process. We head towards the Combine and then Pro Days, and before you know it, April is here, and we are in Green Bay this year for the NFL Draft. So what I want to do on today's episode is look over Mel Kiper's updated big board, which we did about 3 weeks ago, but this time it's a little bit different because 3 weeks ago, we were only thinking about guys to pick at number 2. Now we have to think about guys you could take at 2 and 10, 2 and 15, 2 and 22, because there's a very real chance the Browns trade Myles Garrett away and have 2 first-round draft picks. So let's get into it. We'll start with who he has at number 1. This is his big board, not a mock draft. He has Travis Hunter at number 1 yet again. That has not changed. At number 2, it is Abdul Carter and followed by Mason Graham. Let's pause right here and let's talk about Abdul Carter because that is my number 1 target for Cleveland with the 2nd overall pick. And if they trade Myles away, I really expect the odds of Carter coming to Cleveland to skyrocket. Carter is 6'3", 259 pounds. He started off at Penn State as an off-ball linebacker, playing inside linebacker. This year, he made the transition playing a true edge rusher role. Wasn't quite like a defensive end like Myles. There are some tiny concerns about his size being a true defensive end in a 4-3 front, but I don't know, 259. We'll see what he weighs in at the Combine. Myles weighs about 270, so we're not talking about, a mass difference right here. He's a unanimous All-American, Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year, and first-team All-Big Ten this past season for the Nittany Lions. This pick right here would be rooted solely in Myles Garrett getting dealt. That's where this really starts to gain some traction. Even if they hold on to Myles, Abdul Carter could still be the play, but if they trade Garrett, I feel like the percentage that Carter's the pick just goes up towards 90%. So, more background on Carter. Last season, in his first year as a true edge rusher for Penn State, it was a season to remember. 23 and a half, 24 tackles for loss, 12 sacks, 66 pressures. He's just scratching the surface in some eyes, right? This is season 1 at this position, and he put up 12 sacks in the Big Ten. Now you start to think about, wow, what could he blossom into after a few more years at that spot and really learning the position and honing his craft? Kind of reminds me of Micah Parsons. He was an off-ball linebacker at Penn State. He is a defensive end now for the Dallas Cowboys. So if you're looking for maybe the next Micah Parsons, I know it's a nice coincidence that they both played at Penn State, but that could be a very similar pro comparison. Between Carter and Hunter, which player would you want the Browns to select? These are the top 2 guys on Kiper's big board. I'm focusing on Carter today because of all the Garrett trade rumors. There's plenty to like about Travis Hunter, but between these 2 guys, if you had to pick one, which one would it be? Scroll on down and give me your response. Moving along here on the big board, at number 4, it is Shedeur Sanders, and at number 5, we have Cam Ward. Let's briefly touch on both quarterbacks because quarterback is definitely a very real possibility for Cleveland at number 2. So I don't want to just gloss over these guys, even though my personal preference would be they stay away from Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. I don't think Ward's going to be an option for them. I think Ward's going to go to the Tennessee Titans. So if your dream is the Browns take Cam Ward, you should quickly find a backup dream. Not a 100% chance he goes to Tennessee, but I think he goes to Tennessee. If I had to prefer one or the other over the other, I would take Ward because I think he's got that higher ceiling. He may not be a perfect fit for what Kevin Stefanski does offensively, but he reminds me at times of I don't want to say Justin Herbert, but the way Justin Herbert kind of emerged on the scene with, whoa, this guy's got a cannon of an arm. Cam Ward's got the ability to make all the throws you want in a quarterback. Whereas Shedeur, I think, can really run Stefanski's offense well, but the limitations, the lack of elite arm strength, and the velocity, that to me does not scream 2nd overall. You can be good in the NFL without having a crazy strong arm like Brock Purdy, but you need to have Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, and all those guys around him. That's not the situation in Cleveland. I don't think Shedeur would fit well in Cleveland with the current roster makeup. At number 6, it is Ashton Jeanty. I have not talked about Jeanty a lot on the channel because I've never felt like that would be a smart play for Cleveland. My bad analogy is running backs and tight ends are kind of like the dessert aisle at a buffet. You can't start there. You got to grab your plate and pretend like you're going to go to the salads, but you really want to go to the meat and potatoes. When a team already has their meat and potatoes, then they can skip to the dessert aisle. The Browns do not have their meat and potatoes. They have to fill out other cornerstone pieces, like offensive tackle, like edge rusher, before they can dip their toe in the luxury of taking a running back. I think Jeanty's going to be a great player at the next level, and that might be reason enough for me to slap myself and go, Matthew, if you think he's going to be good, then take him. But just like how I thought Saquon Barkley was going to be good, it didn't really work out in the Giants because the Giants had other needs to fulfill, and Barkley could not single-handedly drag them to a win every single week. Whereas now with the Eagles, you are seeing what happens when you have the meat and potatoes all filled out, and you just need that soft serve ice cream, that running back. And Barkley's doing a tremendous job in Philly. Browns are not at the Philly stage yet. They're at the Giants stage. So what I don't want to see happen is Browns draft Jeanty. He's great, but they ultimately just don't hold on to him because they have to fulfill other needs first. And he leaves in free agency and is great on his next team. Now, we are going to be pumping out draft content here at the Cleveland Browns Report, so make sure you subscribe to the channel. There is no other channel out there that's going to be getting you guys this much NFL draft content to just completely dive headfirst into. So if you are not a part of the Cleveland Browns Report, make it a priority to do so right now. Number 7 is the Arizona receiver T-Mac. I do not see the Browns going receiver in round 1, so moving along. Jalen Walker, they're not going linebacker. Will Johnson out of Michigan, he fell 3 spots in Kiper's latest big board. Don't ask me why. It's not like he played a game between the first big board and the second big board, but someone had to fall for Jeanty going up, and I don't know why Jeanty went up, but that's the nature of offseason big board. So let's pause at Johnson because this could be a player the Browns target if they maybe trade back from the second overall pick or they acquire an additional first-round draft pick via a Myles trade. I like Johnson a ton as a prospect. I think the numbers and the resume speaks for itself. He was so dominant in their run to the Natty, and this is someone who I look at as a no-doubter, perennial Pro Bowl type of player. And when you're picking the first round in the top 10, you got to hit. And if you want a bit of a safe play, Will Johnson's your man. He may not be a big splashy player that scores a ton of touchdowns, but if you want to just take a guy that you have confidence will be a high-end starter for 8 to 10 years like Denzel Ward, I think Will Johnson can be that. And at a cornerstone piece like cornerback, and with the issues you've had at Greg Newsome and Martin Emerson, I am not opposed to adding Will Johnson, especially with Emerson and Newsome entering contract seasons and replenishing at the cornerback spot, along with the Warden getting up there in the age column and all the injuries he has sustained. So I like Johnson a lot for the Browns if it all kind of seems to come together. Before we look at the rest of Kiper's big board, I do want to give a shout out to Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players. Basketball season is heating up, and Prize Picks is the best place to get real money action while watching your favorite teams. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. They also offer Venmo and MasterCard for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals into your account this season. Plus, for the big game, they are putting Patrick Mahomes' passing yards at 0.5. They're just giving it to you. Take the more on this, the more on one more, and you are ready to roll. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. All of that information is in the comments and description of today's video. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. At number 10, it is Tyler Warren, the Penn State tight end. He's going to be a great player at the next level. I'm going to kind of throw him in that Genty ice cream dessert aisle. I don't think the timing is right for the Browns to pick up a tight end. You have other needs that are more pressing. Will Campbell at number 11, the offensive tackle from LSU, who has been a day one starter at left tackle. We can roll through a few more here. Shamir Stewart, defensive lineman from Texas A&M. You've got Colston Loveland out of Michigan, another tight end who is in the top 15 in Kiper's big board. Kelvin Banks, Texas left tackle. So 2 left tackles coming in between 11 and 15. And then at 15, it is the edge rusher from Georgia, Mykel Williams. We can pause here and talk about a couple of players that could be in play for the Browns for Kiper's big board. Will Campbell, he is a 6'6", 323-pound, 3-year starter at left tackle for the Tigers. There's not a lot of sacks since his freshman year. There's not a lot of issues with Will Campbell when you just look at the resume like this. Some people think that he projects to be a guard at the next level. And there are lots of examples of tackles making the change to guard and having great NFL careers. I'm not shaming offensive line position changes, although it didn't really work out with Jed Wills, so it's not always a guarantee. What I am a little bit peckish about is drafting someone top 10, top 15, and then go, we're changing your position immediately. I mean, the Chargers did that with Joe Alt, and things are off to a pretty good start, but Joe Alt was a much better prospect as a tackle than Will Campbell is. So there are some size concerns. I think he's going to be a good player at the next level. I don't know if he's going to be like a 12-year starting left tackle for the Cleveland Browns. So that's where I'm a little bit on the fence about it, but I don't think it would be a bad pick. I think he's going to be a better tackle than like Jed Wills is. Shamir Stewart is another player I want to talk about. Let's just say the Browns acquire an extra first and they go quarterback at pick number 2 or Travis Hunter, and they don't get Abdul Carter. Maybe he goes to the Titans. Shamir Stewart is a name to watch for because he screams Andrew Berry type of prospect. 6'6", 280-ish pounds, and he has incredible speed, burst, and bend. He is a freak. Like, he's a Feldman freak type of made in a lab type of player. He does not have a ton of production. 3-year starter for the Aggies. He had 1.5 sacks in all 3 seasons. So there is some concern about the lack of production, but we know Barry has always coveted physical attributes and traits, and this guy has the attributes and the traits. Josh Simmons comes in next, the left tackle for Ohio State, who unfortunately had his season cut short due to a knee injury at Oregon. This is a tackle that I think some other people are sleeping on, and I am not. I think there's a lot to like here. Started off at San Diego State, transfers to Columbus, immediately starts at left tackle, but he had some experience at right tackle, so a little bit of versatility if you needed him to bounce around early in his career. But other teams are going to overlook him because of the injury. I'm not. What I remember was when he went down, the Ohio State offensive line went down. And it wasn't until late in the season that they start to really kind of put it together. Kind of about when they played my Tennessee Volunteers. So, if you want to know how valuable he was to his team, go back and think and learn and read about what people were saying regarding the OSU offensive line from the Oregon loss to the first week of the CFP. It was hair on fire. This is a problem. You want to know why it became a problem? Because Simmons was a key player who got injured. Mike Green is next up. He was not even ranked on Kiper's big board before this latest edition, and he jumped all the way up to 17 because he was a complete stud and standout at the Senior Bowl. If you missed it, he had that viral clip of just bulldozing Josh Connerly, the Oregon tackle, in a one-on-one matchup. He led FBS in sacks with 17. He finished second in tackles for loss, runner-up to Abdul Carter. He was top 10 in pressure rate, 59 pressures, 81 tackles. He started off at Virginia, transferred to Marshall. He really only became a full-time starter in 2024. So there's not a ton of tape here, but this was someone that people started to discount because he played in the Sun Belt and he really used the Senior Bowl to his advantage because he went up against some of the best, prospects from all different conferences, and he pushed around and bullied and was the number one defensive lineman in Mobile. So if, again, the Browns acquire an extra first and you're like, hey, I think with how loaded this defensive line class is, they should go quarterback or Travis Hunter at number 2, and they can find a pretty good edge rusher, maybe not as good as Abdul Carter, but they will be making a huge sacrifice by passing on Carter because they can go with Mike Green with the new pick they have at like number 20 or something. And while I don't love that mindset, I don't hate the idea of now you have the bonus luxury of we can still get a good player in round 1 with this new first-round pick we acquired, and we can roll the dice on Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. And if it doesn't work out, well, it's definitely going to be a bummer that we did not better utilize the second overall pick. We still got a good player in round 1 with our other pick. Luther Burden, the wide receiver from Mizzou, comes in at 18. No thank you. Another tight end to watch for if you're in the tight end market, it's the Miami tight end, Elijah Arroyo. He has been flying up boards all over the country since the Senior Bowl. Malachi Starks, the do-it-all man for the Georgia secondary, comes in at 20 after falling from 16. Another safety, South Carolina's Nick Emanwari, comes in at 21. Emeka Ibuka. Again, these are guys that I think are good players. I just don't think position-wise it's that pressing of a need for Cleveland. But the Browns have shown an ability to take best player available. And while we all clamor for best player available until the draft actually gets here, then you're like, how could you not take this position? We don't need that position. Just like how they don't necessarily need a guard because you just took Zach Zinter last year. But Tyler Booker, who's 23 on Kiper's big board, I think he's going to be a surefire player at the next level. So if you're looking for a safe pick, may not be the sexiest position, but Booker, I think, is going to project to be a really good player. Jahad Campbell, same goes for him. A lot of people like him. I don't think the Browns need an off-ball linebacker, but if they have grave concerns over JOK, maybe they decide to bring in some depth and a potential replacement. And then finally, if you want my gem, I wouldn't say this is a sleeper because he's going to go round 1 or round 2, but Walter Nolan. The guy had 6.5 sacks last year for Ole Miss, and he's nearly 300 pounds. I think he is what the Browns wanted Siaka Ika to be. A brutal run stopper who has pass rush upside. And unfortunately, they never got either out of him, but I think Nolan's going to be a really good pick for some team. Before we sign off, let's pick a card. Dylan, which card do you want to go with?
9 of diamonds.
Do I stick with my strategy after what it did to me last time?
You gotta go with your gut.
I think I gotta trust that over a large sample size, it's gonna work. It's like that Bryan Cranston movie about the lottery. You need a big sample size. I'm gonna go with. I'm thinking 8 of clubs, but I'm not gonna say 8 of clubs. I'm gonna change to Queen of Diamonds. What'd you say? 9 of fucking diamonds.
Oh.
Damn it! It's 1-0 producers. It could be 1-1 right now if I stuck with 6 of spades last time. And you get it. What was the next card? 9 of clubs.
I had a feeling this is 9.
Damn. Yeah, I'm sure you had a good feeling. All right. Well, that's it for today's episode. Congrats to Dylan. It's 1-0 bad guys right now in the Chat Sports Studios. We have one more segment to get to. Ghostface is in the chat. It's our mailbag. So get your questions in. Use hashtag Browns or Super Chat. We got questions coming in from Dallas. Ghostface, how about you toss a question in since you just filed on in? I'm just going to call you out like you snuck into class late. No. I see you in the back row right there. Were you if I divided your classroom up into 3 sections, closest, middle, furthest, where did you sit in college, Dylan? I'll be yourself.
Normally I sat in the middle.
Middle's good.
I also did front because I got distracted if I'm in the back and I can see everyone's screen.
That's a good point. I was a middle guy. I was a front middle because I wanted to get this impression of I'm too cool to sit in the front row, but also I do want to learn. Like, I don't want to just completely, surf the web and that sounds so old of me to say, but like just scroll on Twitter. So I was a middle front row person. I was also strictly a hand notes person. I did not like taking notes on my computer because I would just be too tempted to stop taking notes and go online and just scroll Twitter all day. So I was a notebook guy for every single class for every semester. Josh, that's a pretty good tip right there. That's kind of the diet I'm somewhat envisioning right now. Okay, we have a mailbag coming up. Use hashtag Browns or Super Chat. If you Super Chat, we guarantee your question gets on screen. We've got 2 Super Chats, so they're going to get on screen. And everyone else that uses hashtag Browns, you just got to wait and see if Dylan picks your question. Are we ready to roll, Mr. Summer? I thought your name this whole time was Summers. Are you sure? Okay, so it's not just me then. I swear at some point I saw Summers. The S is silent. The S is there, but it's silent. That's the remodel we're going to go under. The rebranding. Yeah. All right. Mailbag time. Let's do this thing. Mike, what available cap space? No, the cap's not a concern for me, but don't expect them to be big spenders in free agency. I'm ready. All right, take 2. Sorry about that. But last reminder, use hashtag Browns or Super Chat. All right, now we're ready. Take 2 and action. Mailbag time here on the Cleveland Browns Report. I'm answering questions that came in during our live show, which airs every single Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. Quick reminder to go ahead and hit that thumbs up button today and every time you watch our video because it does help grow the channel more than you might realize. Now, let's start off with a question coming in via Super Chat. Don't worry, we can edit this out. All right. Technical difficulty, so my apologies. Sometimes technology does not want to cooperate. I love how everyone's giving, like, subtle diet tips here. Kathy, breakfast cream of wheat. I'm not a breakfast guy. It's just a laziness element. Okay, so 1 second. Sorry about that, everyone. Hopefully ready to roll in just a minute here. What's your favorite breakfast? If I'm going to a breakfast restaurant, I love Eggs Benedict. Eggs Benedict is going to be, if it's on the menu, like top 2 contender. Can never go wrong with some chocolate chip pancakes, but Eggs Benedict, I love the hollandaise sauce. This would not make for good content in the mailbag video. We hardly ever edit stuff out. It's only if there's technical issues like this. I don't know. Let me ask. Okay. Little pause right now because the software we use to get your questions on screen is not cooperating. Kathy says omelet and bacon. No, don't blame Dylan. This is out of Dylan's control. If I'm doing an omelet, since we're really kind of getting to... I'm sorry, this is not making for good radio here. We're just trying to get the technology to cooperate. But just give us a moment. Bear with us here as we break down our favorite breakfast foods in the comments right now. Is chocolate good? I can't eat it. I'm allergic. Dude, you are missing out.
I'm not a big sweet tooth like dessert person. That might be surprising. You'll never see me loitering around the candies. It's not pulling super chats. So, okay. Reed is here to fix the super chat problem, and then we're ready to get into our mailbag. Raw dogs, I would go nowhere than the Jets. No lower than the Jets. I think you're saying with the trade and aim for Dart. Yeah, I think Dart is going to be this year's like pre-draft darling. I'm not going to forget all about the way he played at Ole Miss at times. I'm not saying you can't draft him. If you make a trade and you acquire a bunch of picks, sure, take a chance. Use one of your second or maybe third round picks if you have multiple on him, Will Howard. But if you don't acquire more picks, I'm not willing to risk the second or the 33rd overall pick on Jackson Dart. I think you can find just better players. You said 1 minute? Okay, I'm sorry, everyone. Yeah, kind of a last second call. Although, right now we're having some issues, but use hashtag Browns or Super Chat. Garrett just got a question in. I'll just read some of these questions out right now just to buy us some time here while we work on the issue. How to fix Browns, get Justin Fields and draft Abdul Carter, keep Garrett, cut Thornhill, draft a receiver. Garrett, you kind of just brushed over the whole keep Garrett part. I don't think it's a good idea to keep him if he does not want to be here. I can't think of instances where that has worked out well. What if he holds out and the entire locker room is just, I wouldn't say divided, but wondering, what are we doing here, guys? Are we actually, really competing for a Super Bowl this year? Because our best player is so adamant that we can't do that. He's not even coming to camp. I agree, AFX. I don't see Myles as a guy to hold out, but he's never been in this situation. He's never been in this situation before. So we're going to learn a lot about him. When's Shea going to be on the show? Shea will not be on the show for a little bit. It'll probably have to be like a preseason watch party. So don't hold your breath. All right. We ready to rock and roll, gentlemen? Everyone, show Reed some love in the chat for helping us out. Yep, mailbag time. Okay. Here we go. Take two. Take two. Make sure the super chat works before we get into our mailbag cut. What about tearing up Myles' old contract, signing him to a new one to help him alleviate the cap hits, and then trading him? I don't think that's how it works. I don't think you can just tear it up and sign him to a new one. One, just because you tear up the contract, it doesn't mean the cap hits go away. I think there's this overarching misconception on how cap hits work. Cap hits are not something that you can just ditch by making a new contract. If you trade Myles away, you don't trade the cap hits away. If you trade for a player, you're not taking on a $20 million cap hit. You don't take on whatever their pre-existing cap hit is with that team. So unfortunately, it's not as simple as that. I wish it was. Now, here we go. Take two this time, and I promise it's going to work. Mailbag time here on the Cleveland Browns Report. Let's get into it. What's going on, everyone? Welcome on into the Cleveland Browns Report. Matthew Peterson here, answering questions that came in during our mailbag, which airs every single Wednesday during our live show, 5 p.m. Eastern. Quick reminder, hit the like button today and every time you step into the Cleveland Browns Report. Our first question is coming in via Super Chat from Loverboy Charlie, who asks, would you do a CeeDee Lamb for Myles Garrett trade? This is a Madden trade. The Cowboys not doing this trade. Even if you remove contracts from the situation, Actually, maybe we don't remove contracts from the situation, but you have to include contracts. And CeeDee Lamb's brand new spanking nice contract is going to get in the way of making this deal possible. If you were to remove contracts, I'd want draft picks. I don't want to acquire CeeDee Lamb and just have him be disgruntled that the Browns are competing here. If there is any position that has a little bit too much diva in them, it's wide receiver. And I feel like if you acquire CeeDee Lamb, he'll be asking for a trade next. So I would only trade Garrett for picks and maybe some players, but the focal point should not be the focal point should not be players. It should be draft picks. Dylan Sutcliffe, if the Browns do go with 2 free agent QBs, what do you think about Kirk Cousins and Mac Jones? I like that combination. I'm on board with that, Dylan. Cousins went on Good Morning Football and shared that he played through a shoulder and elbow injury when the Falcons lost 4 straight games and Cousins not throw a single touchdown pass in that stretch. So very convenient that he shares this information now, a month before free agency. That's not by accident. That's very intentional. But if he truly did suffer that injury and that's why he played poorly, if you're the Browns, you're looking at that going, okay, well, at least now we have an explanation for how he completely fell off the face of the earth. And if he's healthy again, which reasonable to assume that that shoulder and elbow can be ready to roll by the start of the next season, then you are going to get a quarterback who's going to be signing for a vet minimum deal since he still has $27 million of a base salary remaining in Atlanta. Going to get a pretty good bargain altogether. So I'm on board with Kirk Cousins along with Mac Jones because he had a good rookie season. Ultimately, he was a victim to horrible coaching in New England at the offensive coordinator position. Because anytime you can make Matt Patricia your play caller, you just have to do it. And I think Kevin Stefanski could really bring out some good play from Mac Jones. So, Dylan, I like this combination a lot, given what your options are. Tyrone, if the Browns draft Travis Hunter, do you think they should utilize him on both sides? I think for him to play with that dog mentality and overall mindset, he needs action on both sides. I think he'd play corner, and I think he would have 10 plays on offense. Some red zone packages, some 3rd and long where it's like, hey, just get open. I don't think he's going to be a part of 1st and 10 from your own 30-yard line, Travis Hunter's in the slot. Unless that's a specialty play by itself, but I don't think he's going to be a consistent part of the offense. I don't want to doubt the guy. It's not even a physical thing. I don't think you can just absorb an offense and defensive playbook in the NFL. There's so much nuance and so many details to it. For a rookie, it's tough enough to learn one playbook, double the workload, and now he's going to be drowning in it. That might be something that gets added onto his plate as years go on in the NFL. Tim Green, next one up on the show. Great to see you, Tim. What are your thoughts on drafting Mason Graham at number 2? I have not spent a lot of time talking about Mason Graham. I do think he is going to be a good NFL player. I don't think he reminds me of this guy I'm going to say next, but maybe has a similar career to this guy. Cam Hayward. Just a perennial force up the middle with pass rush upside. Mason Graham was not like an Aaron Donald type pass rush upside when Aaron was at Pitt going into the draft, but he's a ferocious run stopper, and he is going to be a problem for opposing teams on the interior of the defensive line. My issue, if you will, with this idea is you just took Mike Hall with your first pick last year. The defensive tackle position is not one of the most important spots for a 3-win team to begin addressing. There are other fish to fry. Defensive tackle with Mike Hall being a pick last year and Dalvin Tomlinson still under contract, I think can be pushed off later in the draft or pushed off to another year altogether. So if they take Mason Graham, I won't be upset too much about it because I think he's a good player, but I will not be over the moon with the position selection given the other spots that need to be addressed with that 2nd overall pick. Dancing Bananas. Did you guys ever watch Bananas in Pajamas? That was like a childhood show I used to watch. Any chance of trading for Cooper Kupp to keep Myles here? I mean, if the Browns are going to keep Myles, it's going to be because they somehow convince him we are a contending team. And one way to do that would be we are going to lay out a plan of the moves we are going to make the offense better. And maybe Myles would agree that adding Cooper Kupp could be a big plus to the offense. I mean, you just insert Kupp into that slot position. You got Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, Cooper Kupp, and maybe with a good quarterback that you convince Myles is a great bridge option, he changes his mind. This is a desperation type move. One I don't think the Browns should make. For starters, I don't anticipate any team trading for Kupp. The Rams have made it very public via Cooper Kupp that they are looking to trade him immediately. The guy is just not who he was 4 years ago when he won the Triple Crown. He's missed a lot of time over the last 2-3 seasons, nearly a third of the games. He's getting older. He's not looking at that true number one receiver anymore. So no team is going to give them a draft pick and take on that contract. My suspicion is he is going to get cut, and the Browns could sign him, but does anyone think Cooper Kupp's going to sign with the Cleveland Browns? I don't. So would you trade for Kupp? We can't just dismiss this idea because we are talking still about Andrew Berry, who has built his entire receiver room via trades. Elijah Moore, Jerry Jeudy, Amari Cooper. He goes to rehab for wide receiver trades. So if he hears a receiver's on the market, it is blood in the water, and he's a great white. Moving on to some other questions on today's mailbag. Garrett Brown's prods. How to fix the Browns. Get Justin Fields and draft Abdul Carter. Keep Garrett. Cut Thornhill. Draft a receiver. I love how just keep Garrett was just snuck in there. Like, I'm not going to notice that big elephant in the room. The issue is if you keep Myles and he wants a trade, you are inviting a very, very toxic relationship into your locker room. One that can simply become a disaster. And we've seen that play out so many times in sports, where a guy wants to be traded and he's held hostage, and it never has a good ending. The only ending that can make it good is a new contract. And that is not a motivating factor for Garrett, at least based off everything he's told us. So unless money persuades him, this to me seems like a bad idea, keeping Myles hostage. The rest of your plan, I can get on board with. If you sign Justin Fields, you got to sign another veteran. Although I think they're going to sign 2 veterans no matter what. Cut one Thornhill, sure, go for it. It'd be a post-June 1 release just to get some cap savings. It's not a ton, but I agree. Just move on altogether. It's been a bad 2 years with him. Super Bowl productions. If you were Myles, why does everyone love spelling Myles' name incorrectly? What would you do in this situation? I mean, if I were Myles, and I am also myself, I'm going to stay in Cleveland. But if I'm Myles Garrett, I don't have an issue with requesting a trade, given how long you've been in Cleveland, what you've been through, and the clear direction this team is headed to, which is some type of rebuild. They are not going to be a contending team for a Super Bowl this upcoming season. And if you draft a rookie quarterback the next offseason, it's going to be at least 2 years until that rookie's in the Super Bowl, unless he's the first rookie ever to make it to the Soupy. So now we're talking about 3 years. I don't blame him for wanting to not be a part of a 3-year type of rebuild. Super Bowl Productions, thank you for your question. Mike Nintendo Master. What can the Browns do with the available cap space? Well, right now they're about $30 million over the projected salary cap. Now they're going to get about $40 million rolled over from 2024. So there are, from what I have gathered and learned, the folks in Berea are not concerned about the salary cap situation. They've always used the salary cap as an advantage to theirs. They've never let the salary cap control them. No, they've always been aggressive in the way they push money into the future to maximize their current spending. That's always been their thought process. I don't think they are panicking over the salary cap space. Now, they've never been big spenders in free agency, but let's just be real with one another. How many times have marquee free agents wanted to come play in Cleveland? I think the Browns know that they are at a bit of a disadvantage when it comes to free agency because Cleveland, Las Vegas, They tend to lose out, like Christian Wilkins last offseason. Browns wanted him. He picked Las Vegas. So that's why they've always been aggressive in trades, because they feel like that's the only way they can get some of the best players to come to Cleveland, which no one wants to hear that, but the evidence points to that. Before we get to the rest of the questions on today's show, Game Time has an awesome feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you do not have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. One thing I really like about Game Time is their all-in pricing option. Toggling this feature shows the total upfront cost with no surprise fees at checkout. Plus, they offer the Game Time guarantee. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Ghostface, should the Browns trade Greg Newsome, or would it be more worth it just to trade Denzel Ward? I talked about this on a previous video. If you're going to trade Myles, why not just blow it all up? It's going to be a tough pill to swallow because Andrew Berry opened up the offseason by saying, we're not trading our cornerstone players, but one's requested a trade, so the floodgates are opening up. And if I'm Denzel Ward, I know he's from the Cleveland area, went to Ohio State, and he's playing for his dream team. But what's stopping him from going, man, if Myles is in here, we're definitely not going anywhere. I want to trade now. So if I'm the Browns and Myles is going, I'm stripping the whole thing down. I'm trading Denzel Ward. I'm trading David Njoku. I'm trading Greg Newsome. And I'm getting every draft pick in this year's draft, next year's draft. Because like or hate Andrew Berry as a drafter, the more picks he has, the higher probability he hits on some of them at least. It's a very tough pill, like I said, to swallow. But I don't see the upside to half-assing a rebuild. And if you're trading Garrett, guys, wake up and face the music. You are rebuilding full on at that point. Kirk Davis, do you think we can get 3 first round on this year and 2 for next year? I'm assuming you mean not just for Myles straight up, right? Like 3 total first round picks for 2025 and 2 in 2026? Probably not. I think Myles can get you 2 first round draft picks. I think Denzel Ward can get you like 2 seconds. With the concussion history, his age, him being the 4th highest paid corner in football, you're probably not going to get a first for Denzel Ward. Jalen Ramsey went for 2 firsts, but he was way younger in his career and not as expensive. So I would think 2 seconds for the Warden. Njoku's probably like a 4th and a 5th, like early day 3 picks. But he's also had some injury history as of late. He's up in the age column, but he's still a good player, so I could see a 4th and a 5th for Njoku. But no, Kirk, I don't think you're going to be getting that many first-round picks. Joshua Miller. Word on the street is Bitonio retires if Myles is traded. Yeah, I meant to bring that up, and it kind of slipped my mind because of all the things going on with Myles. I don't think it's just if Garrett gets traded. I think Bitonio might just retire just because. He's talked about this for 2 off seasons now. And I think it was Wyatt Teller or Jack Conklin. Someone said that once a month has gone by, he's going to be in a different mental headspace, and he's going to be ready to come back and play football once he's a little bit removed from all of the physical toll of the season. But yeah, Garrett getting traded, I feel like could be, all right, there's no clearer sign that this is time for me to hang it up, because 10 years here, and we have 2 playoff appearances to show for, 1 playoff win, which, listen, people are kind of like downgrading that. There are way worse, resumes for successful players. It's not good, don't get me wrong, but it's not awful. So if Garrett gets dealt, I expect Bitonio to retire. but I think Bitonio could retire regardless of what happens with Myles. Lohan Suf. How would you feel about sending him to the Titans and having the first 2 picks in the draft, then reuniting Sanders and Hunter in Cleveland, and we build off of that? I've seen this idea tossed out there. Well, I do think it's important to note that Myles does not have a say in where he gets dealt, so he might say he wants to go to a contender, but the Browns are going to take him or trade him to whatever team gives him the best offer. The Tennessee Titans are not trading the first overall pick for Myles Garrett. They just need to prioritize a young foundation, not add a 29-year-old defensive end. He'll be great for Tennessee. He'll put up 15, 16 sacks, and the Titans will win 3 or 4 games. Just like how that happened again, this happened in Cleveland this year. So this, to me, is unrealistic. As for the idea of reuniting Sanders and Hunter, no. Let college football stay in college football. If the logic is they were so good in college, reunite them in the NFL, they better have been as good as Joe Burrow and Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, which they were not. Let's pick a card to wrap up the show. Dylan, after getting it correct the last time, 1-0 Producers. Which card do you want to go with? Oh, yeah. King of Hearts. I was thinking 5 of Clubs. It's not going to be the 5 of Clubs. So, I'm going to audible to a 2 of Diamonds. What'd you say? No. 7 of Diamonds. That's it. Oh, we did get a super chat from AFX. We want to throw AFX super chat on screen. We'll end the mailbag with this right here. So, sorry about the AFX. I did not mean to have your super chat get skipped. My mistake. So we'll really end our mailbag with this super chat coming in from AFX. Here we go. Be honest, do you think we are going to lose Garrett? It is a stare down between Andrew Berry and Myles Garrett. And I don't think the Browns are going to keep Garrett hostage. So, yes. I do not think Myles Garrett will be in Cleveland on the home side of the field in week 1. All right. That's going to do it for us on our live show today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Always appreciate it. For everyone that super chatted, Josh, AFX, of course, and then Loverboy Charlie. Appreciate you more than you know for supporting the channel like this. If Myles wins a Super Bowl with another team, does he go into the Hall of Fame with that team or the Browns? With the Browns. He's not trying to have a messy split up. I think he still loves the team and whatnot, but he wants to go win a ring. Time Man the Buckeye, 7 diamonds. Yeah, you're right. The Broncos kind of claim him too. I think it also depends also a little bit on how long he plays for this other team. I think Myles can play 6 more good seasons. 4 great seasons, 6 more good seasons. Like, let's just compare him for a moment to Von Miller. Von Miller is 35. And he had 8 sacks when he was 33 years old, his first year in Buffalo. So Myles is 29, so 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. So I think he still has 5 more great years in him. Okay. That will do it for us on our mailbag. Kathy, did you also get it right? Damn, Kathy and Time Man the Buckeye. Congrats to both of you. That's a big win right there. Appreciate everyone once again for tuning into our live show. I will be back tomorrow with more content, so I'll see you all then.